I just need more time is the
Mm.
big myth, right? We all need it. The truth is there is no more time. So then how do we use our values to prioritize the things that are important to us?
Welcome to the Things You Can't Unhear podcast. I'm your host, Maritza Barone. In this show, I will introduce you to ideas, concepts, and mindsets that will open your mind to a new world of well-being and personal life growth. Through eye-opening interviews, we elevate people in the world doing amazing things for humanity and share insights that will shift you to become the happiest, healthiest, kindest, and most compassionate version of you. So today we have an exceptional business coach and leadership mentor, Emma McQueen, on the show. After spending 20 years plus coaching in a large international organization, Emma took the plunge to pursue her own dream of running her leadership development business and is now showing people the way forward with their own careers and lifestyle. With a great passion in helping women in business, whether it be female entrepreneurs in new startups, lady founders, mums at home with bustling small businesses, or executives in senior leadership roles, Emma provides real, tangible, and easy to implement life-changing advice on business coaching, corporate success, chaos to clarity strategy, and more. So welcome, Emma, to the show.
Wow, what a great introduction.
I know. I wish it was my own bio.
That's awesome. Thanks.
I love the last point, chaos to clarity strategy. I think we all need a little bit of that right now.
We really, really do.
Yeah.
I think everyone's just been living in chaos as you and I have, we've had kids at home. I've had my hubby at home. I've got little bandwidth on my internet because children are at uni and doing uni assignments and it's killing me. And so the chaos is just on top of what we already carry from a mental load perspective. It's been massive.
Absolutely. And I think, when we go back into whatever normal looks like for us now, I think we've really got to learn from these moments and what we've experienced and try not to go back into that like we were because it wasn't working for us before. And I really think we need to learn from it because, you bump into someone down the street. What's the first thing they say to you? Oh, hi, I haven't seen you for ages. How have you been? Oh, great, but really busy. That busyness factor is just so prominent in society. How do you think we should go back into it after learning all of what we've just experienced right now and a way to sort of make the most of our time and our to-do lists when we go back into everyday life?
Yeah. Do I think we're probably all a bit addicted to busy, right? It's like we wear it like a badge of honor. And my top strength is achiever. So I like to get stuff done. And if I don't feel like I'm getting stuff done, then, it doesn't feel like I'm being productive. But I think what this time has taught us is just to slow down and be a bit more present. And I remember the first couple of weeks, I had my hubby's a secondary school teacher, and he teaches wood and phys ed and history. So you can imagine how freaking difficult that is over Zoom. And I've got a 6-year-old, so she's in grade 1, and I also have an 18-year-old who's first year uni. And I remember just being really frustrated about bandwidth for internet and people being in my space because I work from home. And all of a sudden it became our office and I'm like, oh. And I was like really annoyed. And I remember having just this restless sleep one day, and I'm training for a half marathon. So I'm doing a lot of running, but I got up the next morning, I was just mad. And I went for a run, and it always helps me with clarity and clear my head. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to have to reframe my brain because this is actually really unhelpful. And so it was about week 2. So we'd all been home for not very long, just kind of settling into it. And I thought about the fact in our lifetime, when else is this going to happen? When else?
Hopefully never.
Well, hopefully never, right? But there's got to be an upside to this. It's like, when do we get 24/7 with our family? When do we get that we're all in the one space at one time, especially as kids get older, they've got their own stuff going on. When do we not have physical activities to take our kids to after school? All of that kind of stuff. And I started to just reshape it to be thankful for having my husband at home 24/7, because we would never get that. And being able to help my year one learn remotely, which has been tough, right? But also just about having good old fashioned family evenings, playing Uno or Scrabble or Monopoly. And I suppose the question about what are you going to do as we go into the new normal is you got to take the bits that really worked for you as a family and as an individual. And you need to make sure that you don't just decide to pick up busy again. But that actually means you need to work out what the priorities are, because if you have a to-do list, a long to-do list, chances are half of those things won't matter in a month. And so how do you prioritize your life, and how do you not pick busy up? Because it's going to have to be a conscious choice, because this is habits of lifetime of being busy and having to wear that badge of honor. And when I worked in corporate, it was the same. How are you? Busy. How are you? Busy. It was just busy.
You almost have to say you're busy, otherwise people start wondering what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. And you're super busy, right? Oh, busy. You must be very important.
Exactly.
No, I just might not have my priorities right.
Well, exactly. Well, when you talk about priorities, because I actually just finished reading your book, Go Getter, and you talk about priorities and to-do lists in that. And it's a brilliant book. It's a really bite-sized type book as well. You can really go through it in a couple of days and get those strong messages out. But you do talk about to-do list and the right to-do list versus the wrong to-do list, because you could just keep doing a million things and not getting results. Where can we sort of direct our to-do list, and how do we get the most out of what we're putting on that list?
Yeah, well, I think firstly, it depends on what you're trying to actually get done. So I know many people that start their day with a to-do list and they feel compelled to get through that whole to-do list before they go and have a coffee or whatever it is. And I think it's a self-fulfilling prophecy that you're going to feel like a failure if you actually don't get your to-do list done. And I was one of those people. So I had to really reframe my brain. And I think it depends on the priority. And interestingly, I just wrote another blog about this because this keeps coming up. So I had a client who we had a coaching session, and she said to me, she's everywhere. I've got a full to-do list. I don't know what to do. And actually all she needed was to work through it and work out what the priority was. And for women who have their own business, the priority might be revenue. For women who work in an organization, it might be whatever the organization needs. And for mums at home, it might be how to sort your life out. But for her, while she had her own business, actually it was the foundational pieces that were keeping her up at night. So what we did is we went through her to-do list. We got rid of some because I asked the question, something along the lines of, is this going to be important in a month? And she's like, nah. I'm like, well, why are we even doing it? So it's almost like a keep, ditch and delegate kind of thing, right? Where you go, okay, what are the things that are really important for right now? What do I need to get done? What are the things that no one's going to notice, including me, if I don't do? And what are the things that I can outsource? And so hopefully through the book, there's lots of stories about my clients and different pieces on how they did do that and how the practical tips on that. But I think you just got to get clear about what is the priority. Because if the priority, for instance, is revenue, looking at revenue and generating revenue, then if there's nothing on your to-do list that says sales or relationship or business development, probably need to review the list, right? But if it's about getting your foundations right, then it's about getting your filing system right so it's efficient, and making sure that you've got systems in place that make things efficient. So I run a Go-Getters Club, and tomorrow is our 2 hours. So we get together for 2 hours and everyone has one goal that they focus on, because multitasking is not great for us. And one of the ladies is going to do her filing. And I said to her in my clarity call with her, I'm like, filing? Really? You want to use it for filing? She's like, you know what? I just have to get my house in order. I'm like, that's actually really fair. Get your house in order means you can scale and grow. If you don't get your house in order, it just feels chaotic the entire time.
It's like when you have a cluttered workspace and your mind is completely cluttered. I totally
Too many tabs open, right?
Exactly. Well, I do want to dig into the messages in your book a little bit further, but first I sort of want to introduce you to people who may not have come across your work before, and sort of talk about your past and what led you down this road to go from that corporate career for over 20 years to starting your own thing.
Yeah, I think I've always been a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit. Um, I'm a bit of a risk taker, so I kind of think I'll give things a go, and I'm an experiential learner, right? So don't just teach me the theory, show me what to do and let me teach someone else, and then I've kind of got it. I was the kid at school who was great at woodwork, great at photography,
Mhm.
all the subjects that actually didn't need any theory necessarily behind them. And I wanted to be a mechanic. So I was in grade 10, wanted to be a mechanic, said to Dad, I'd like to be a mechanic. He's like, over my dead body, will you be a mechanic? Interestingly enough, we celebrated my dad's 70th birthday last year. And in his speech, he said that he wanted to be a mechanic and his mum and dad wouldn't let him.
Oh,
And I'm
so
like,
pass that on.
so I got to go next. And I'm like, Dad, how outrageous. You've let history repeat by not allowing your daughter to be a mechanic. He's like, Emma, you probably wouldn't have made a very good mechanic. I'm like, no, but I would have owned all the mechanics stores. And he's like, oh, yeah, that's true. So I had an entrepreneurial spirit. I just wanted to kind of do my own thing. And 20 years, 20 great years in corporate land and not for profit. And I loved it with a passion. But I just wanted to see if I could do it on my own. And I am on the faculty of Women in Leadership Australia. And I've done a lot of coaching and, worked with the Institute of Executive Coaches and Leadership. And I just really think that women specifically, I mainly work with women, well-known, well-kept secret that I do work with some men, but I work with women because they have the potential that they're not necessarily stepping into. And so I was like, how can I impact more women to step into the leadership space? And I'm personally appalled at the salary gap and when that starts. And the research in my book really helped me solidify that. And I found out when do you reckon the pay gap starts?
Yeah.
Kids are 7.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my goodness, boys get paid more for mowing lawns than girls get for doing indoor work, and so I wanted to do something that was impactful for women around Australia and the world. I do some global coaching as well. I wanted to be a really good role model for my 6-year-old and my 18-year-old and my 19-year-old. And I just think women can do whatever they want. But sometimes I hold the belief for my clients before, and then they catch up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's that confidence thing. And we feel a bit nervous and scared. And I think especially after having kids, your whole perspective shifts. And for me, my corporate life, they were very flexible after Evie, my 6-year-old, but I was done with feeling guilty about that. And so I'm like, I'm going to do this myself and see if I can make a business out of it and help other women do the same thing if that's what they want.
I love how you've been through a series of events and you've come out the other end, because I think that's so important as a mentor and as a leader and as a coach to have someone who can truly understand where you're coming from and the thought process that you're going through. It makes it so much stronger, doesn't it, as someone who receives that information from you, to understand that you've been there and you've been there recently. And I think that's really important.
Yeah.
I think with women too, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we crave a lot more work-life balance because we want to be good at being a parent, but we also want to be really great at our careers. And I think that's a big hardship that a lot of us have, is finding that ideal balance. Tell me about some of your clients that you've worked with who are, because I can think of people who are popping to mind right now who are in amazing corporate careers, but are sort of really failing at home and not getting it quite right, and just completely stressed when they are, or working around the clock, laptops always out, not giving the correct attention to who needs it at home. Have you had clients who are, walking this talk at the moment?
Yeah. I've got heaps of clients. I think the thing is, people feel like they have to make a choice between career and being a mum. And I think we can have it all. I just don't know that we can have it all at the same time. And there will be people that disagree with that. But I also think if you are, because I was a better mum for working. I knew that I was never going to be a stay-at-home mum. That's just not my gig. I'm actually a much better mum if I'm working. But where I see, especially women in corporate, when you never get to switch off, I see boundaries super blurred. And I had one client who just rang me and she was in tears and she was like, I just don't know, I can't do either of them very well. and I'm letting everyone down, including my boss. And we came up with a kind of 30-day plan because she was about to burn out. I could hear it in her voice. I could see it in her face. And a lot of my coaching sessions do end in tears, sometimes happy, sometimes not so happy, but a realization that something needs to shift, right? And she was fully prepared for it because she knew it was going to break. So we implemented some really simple things. So the first thing we implemented was when she got home, she wouldn't take her laptop out of her bag. She would just leave it at the front door. She would, after dinner, check her phone for half an hour before putting it back away. She would find some time to reset and rest, because I think people think working hard means working really long hours without any reset and rest. And that's actually not true. Adam Fraser's work, he's a psych and he does some work around the third space, right? And the third, have you heard of the third space?
No, I haven't.
The third space is like basically from home to work, work to home. And what a lot of my clients do is they use the space from home to work in the morning to phone clients, listen to podcasts, get up to date with their learning, Audible, etc., etc. And on the way home, they do the same thing. And so the first thing I did with her was say, you need to drive home in silence. For someone who's busy, used to having a busy brain, because what happens is we keep filling our brain with stuff after we leave work. And so by the time we get into the door after work, we're still processing our day. Whereas what I want to do is process your day while you're in the frame of mind of work. And then when you step inside the house, automatically you don't need to process anymore. So you'll be far more present with your kids and with your family. And she found that one thing the most amazing thing for her. And she did say it was hard though. She said, driving home in silence is really tough. I went a number of times to turn the radio on or to make a call. I'm like, I can't, Emma won't let me. And so driving to work in silence allows you to think about the day, prepare for the day, think about your calendar, think about what conversations you need to have a couple out loud so it doesn't sound really good in your head. And then when you say it out loud, it comes across a bit terrible. And then on the way back, it's about actually how do you decompress from the day? And it just kind of makes sense, right? But we don't do it because we fill our brains with other stuff. And one of my clients said, but that's the only way I'm learning. I'm like, you're not taking much in if you're doing it that way anyway. You've already been on for 12 hours.
It's like a form of meditation almost, but you're a bit more present.
Yes.
Present is what you do in meditation, but if you know what I mean, it's just that stopping and allowing the brain to catch up. And, you talking about that brings back memories from when I worked in a senior management role and just was, hundreds of emails a day and could never catch up to them, would come home, pull the laptop out and just sit there and bang on the laptop every single night. And it was so snappy towards my kids, absolutely just irritable and wasn't succeeding in any angle at all. So I think if you just allow, like you say, it's so true, so simple, allow the brain to catch up to what's actually going on.
Yeah.
And let the dust settle a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when I used to work for a really large not-for-profit, and there were times when there was stuff that happened that we kind of couldn't control. It was overseas, et cetera, and I was in HR, so you get to see all the ugly bits as well as all the best bits. And my husband and I had this rule. I was allowed to talk to him for about 10 minutes. And then at one point he would go, you need to go have a shower and wash the day away. And it was such a great reset for me, right? But if I had done the work on the way home, we wouldn't even need to have that conversation.
Yeah.
And the other thing that happened, I had someone else and they came to me and said, I've got a confidence issue. I'm like, okay. Because normally what happens is people present and they say, I've got this thing, whether it's a confidence issue. And then when you scratch the surface, it's actually not that issue at all, but they don't know how to articulate that. Yeah. So as a coach, my job is to go, is that actually the issue that you want to work on or is it something else? Anyway, I had said to her, okay, so I'm going to tell you about the third space and here's what I need you to do. I need you to go home, da-da-da-da. And she's like, how is this going to help me with my confidence? I'm like, can you just trust me that that's what you're going to do? We're going to get you into a really good routine so that you go home, you process the day in the car, you get home with your hubby, you have a really nice dinner, you don't switch work back on, you get into a really good night routine, which means no screens. I was very specific with her. And then after 2 weeks, I want you to come back to me and tell me if it's worked. And two things happened. She said it was really hard, but I did it because you made me do it. And two, I've had such better sleep. I'm like, right. And so what has that meant for your confidence? And as I made her reflect on it, she's like, my confidence has gone up. I'm like, see, there's this correlation between sleep and confidence, right?
That's right.
As mums, busy working mums, busy women, the first thing to go is sleep. You know, when you've had no time to yourself and the kids are finally in bed and you're like, I should go to sleep, but I'm going to mindlessly scroll through my phone for an hour, right? And so we rob ourselves of sleep, which means we rob ourselves of being our best, most productive, and our most rested and confident. But it's just such a small tweak. And people look at me like I'm a bit cray-cray. Could be. But it's just those little things that if you can tweak and get right, then it has a whole ripple effect for everything else that you do.
Oh, totally agree with you. Look, there's a lot of failures that we go through as men or women and men, regardless of what gender we are. How can we use failure to our advantage and learn from the mistakes that we make?
Oh, I love that question. Well, first thing is don't beat yourself up. Women are very good at beating themselves up very early on. And, sometimes we talk to ourselves like we would talk to someone who we don't even like. You're an idiot. You're stupid. You shouldn't have done that. Why did you do it that way? That's never going to work. And we listen, that inner critic just gets in our way. What I help women do is just reframe it to say, you know what, I'm learning. So I did the best that I could. What can I learn out of that? What can I take from that and use in the next situation? And I think it's the difference between a fixed and a growth mindset, right? A fixed mindset basically says, the work from Carol Dweck says, basically, if you have a fixed mindset, you basically feel like this is how it is, doesn't change, doesn't shift, can't do anything about it. Growth mindset is more around anything's possible, anything can change, and we are learning as we go. And so, or we're learning as we grow. Because I think the more success you have, the more confident you are, but it almost feels like you're going to fall a little bit. The fall's going to be bigger when you do make a mistake, and you need to be prepared not to beat yourself up for the mistake, but just kind of go, okay, well, that happened. Brush yourself off, get up and kind of keep going and try again. It's almost like that day sucked, but tomorrow can be a brand new day. And so I think the thing is to get rid of the guilt and just to reframe your brain to say it. And we catastrophize it in our brain. We kind of go, oh, that was a really big thing. No one's going to remember except you. So you kind of got to have a way to move through it yourself. And that might be journaling, that might be meditation, that might be, I don't know, writing it down and burning it. It could be a whole range of things. I'm not a real dweller. I don't actually have a very good memory either. And I kind of don't dwell on this stuff. So it's a bit easier for me because I'm like, that happened. I'd probably do X, Y, and Z again. Do I need to go and apologize to someone? What do I need to do next? And when am I going to try that thing again? To make sure that I'm not a self-fulfilling prophecy on I can't do this.
There's these events that I've heard of called F up nights. So
yes,
what they do is allow people to get on stage and share what their biggest F ups are and really celebrate their failures.
Oh, come on. Tell me one of them.
I can't, it doesn't spring to mind, but they're all around business mainly. So, pitches that have gone wrong or, just failed businesses, startups, whatever that might be. But they get up there and they talk about them and they celebrate them and people cheer them on. And then they're like, okay, next. So I think that's pretty much what you're talking about, isn't it? It's about just working your way through it, learning from it, navigating around it, and just starting again. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah. I mean, when I was writing the book, someone gave me the best advice. I was like, blood, sweat, and tears. I don't know if you've ever written a book, but 25,000 words. And I was just like, how am I going to do this? And anyway, I glued my bum to the seat, was in aching pains over the title and the subtitle and the taglines. Someone said to me, you know what, Emma? No one's going to read it. No one's going to care. And I thought, you know what? You're right. And it was great because it's not true, but it was a useful belief for me to have so that I could just get the thing out.
Exactly. Someone said that to me at my when I held my first event, and I was tossing up between whether to have a day event, a night event, a weekday event, and it was just all these questions, and I kept asking everyone their opinion. And someone said to me, "Whoever is supposed to be there will be there. And I was like, that has just made my life so much easier. I'm going to book the event when I want to hold it,
Well
and whoever
done.
can come can come.
Yes.
And it was a success, and everyone who was meant to be there was there. So it just takes so much pressure off you when you think in those ways. Your
Oh, yeah.
mindset shifts.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I held a lunch with the Queen via Zoom, my 100 lunch. You came along to it.
Yep.
It was the first time I think we had 70 people online, and the technology stuffed up, right? Someone said to me after, you were so calm. I'm like, you know what? On the inside, I was.
You weren't.
Like that.
Well, for people who are listening, Emma holds a lunch with the Queen. Tell us a little bit about it.
It's literally just a play on my name. My last name is McQueen. And so basically we just get women together. It's for women. We get women together. Normally we do it face to face, capped at 15 women. And it's just a networking opportunity. Hear from me, for people to ask me questions, etc., etc. But in May, I'm like, let's do this on Zoom. Let's open it up. Yeah, that'll be so fun. 100 seats later. And I had done everything within my power to make it run smoothly. I pre-allocated the breakout rooms. I had a producer. I had all this stuff. And then it just didn't work. And I'm just like, you know what? It's perfect for me. It's a perfect learning on you can control every single element and it can still turn to crap. I mean, it didn't turn to crap.
It was
right?
brilliant. Look, from an attendee point of view, couldn't tell anything went wrong. Like, you absolutely nailed it. And that was such a great event because we networked and sort of, we haven't been able to be in front of people for a while now. So any type of meeting someone new and that connection, that new connection that I crave so much personally was there. And we sort of did breakout rooms, introduced ourselves, talked about what our businesses were, and it was brilliant. And I think you've created a whole community around that called Thriving Women, haven't you?
I have created a whole community. The funny thing about May Lunch with the Queen, and I desperately wanted him to show up. Hamish, you know how Hamish is doing his room for one more on Zoom? Have you seen that?
No.
Hamish Blake. Oh, he's doing this thing where he just randomly pops up in a Zoom. And I just thought that would be so much fun. We have decided.
How does he hack in? That's what I want to know.
Well, you have to send him the link. So obviously the organizer kind of let us. But we have decided to do Lunch with the Queen June again, Zoom, 100 women again, just because we're a bit cray-cray. But yes, Thriving Women were there, and Thriving Women is a beautiful program that is capped at 20 women who either have businesses or are in a leadership role. And they have access to workshops and one-on-one coaching and some strengths stuff, because I'm a big advocate of leading into your strengths rather than working on your weaknesses, because it's not the same uplift. They do co-working, they have business books. It's actually a really amazing community of generous and kind women. And we run for 12 months at a time. So it's been fun. And it was fun to have them there, actually.
You are definitely a go-getter. So I think you chose the title of your book perfectly well. You have a podcast, you have a book, you have a business, you have mentoring, leadership programs. Is there anything that you're not doing?
Interestingly, cooking. I don't cook really. And my husband was on the Zoom with one of his teacher mates, and it was a woman. And she was saying to him, because I was saying, do you want the book? And she's like, yeah, that'd be great. Rara. And she goes to Mark as I walked away. She goes, is there anything your wife can't do? And he's like, shush. But I can't cook. He does all the cooking.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Overrated.
You can order food. Anyway, that's fine.
Yeah, that's right.
I've got your little book in my hands right now. And it's all about myths and breaking down myths.
Yes.
What are some of the biggest myths we tell ourselves as women?
Oh my goodness. There are so many. And
there are so many.
There are so many. And actually, I've got the book in front of me, but we should give one away. Let's give one away.
I would love to give one away. I'm sure our listeners would. I can think of 10 people who'd want it now. I've actually offered my book to a few people after I finished. So we'll definitely do a giveaway on this podcast.
Yeah, let's
follow us on
that.
Instagram. Yeah,
let's do that. Look, I think when I wrote the book, I basically went, what are women telling me? What are the patterns when I work them? What are they telling me that is just bollocks? And I suppose the big thing is I just need more time is the big myth, right? We all need it. And it's just not a helpful thing to have in our brains, because the truth is there is no more time. So then how do we use our values to prioritize the things that are important to us versus being focused on the fact that I actually need more time? And then the other myth, which is really interesting, which has got a lot of traction, is I need to multitask to be successful. And I actually had someone reading it last week, and they sent me a message on Instagram and said, I'm having a bath, reading your book. It was a woman. I'm having a bath, reading your book. I'm on myth 6. Of course, I knew what myth 6 was. And she's like, I probably shouldn't be texting you at the same time as... And I'm like, no, one, don't drop the phone in the bath. But I suppose she was saying it's really hit home for me that we're always, as women, trying to multitask. It's like having all those tabs open in our head.
Yeah.
And we never close anything off. And so we get slower because we've got so much going on. So, and that's where I introduced the Pomodoro technique, right? The 25 minutes.
I love that technique. Can you tell everyone about that?
Yeah, I love it too. It's actually called Pomodoro, but
Pomodoro.
Yeah, perfect. You did it great.
Married to an Italian man.
Perfect. So it's a tomato. Pomodoro is Italian for tomato, and it started with a little tomato timer. And the premise of it is that you set a task for 25 minutes. You set the Pomodoro timer for 25 minutes, and you get one task done in 25 minutes. Have a 5-minute break, come back, do another 25 minutes. I've incorporated it in the Get Shiz Done, the Go-Getters Club as well. So we do 25-minute sprints on stuff so that we can just get stuff done. And I think what it means is that for me, I only have a to-do list. So very practically, I only have a to-do list of 3 things in a day. And the hardest thing is the first thing I do, whether that's a big thing or not. And they may not be 25-minute things, but I just kind of guesstimate how much they are. And I work for 25 minutes and then I make a decision. Do I need to spend another 25 minutes on this, or is it good enough? I'm a good enough girl. So I am 60% is good enough, right? So I spend 25 minutes at a time just getting stuff done. When you're a mum and you're trying to juggle everything, especially home learning, it's been brilliant because I was able to say to Evie, okay, you need to do this task. I'll be back in 25 minutes to check on you. And 25 minutes isn't too long, right? So I did the task, but you just have to be pretty committed to doing 25 minutes and then getting
There's no exceptions on this one.
Yeah, no. So I really love the technique for that reason, because you don't check your emails, you don't do anything else, you just focus on the one task, which goes to the myth about multitasking to be successful, because it's just not true. Our brain can't do that many things, right? Like I've been a culprit. I've had many conversations I've had while scrolling. I don't even remember what the conversation was.
I know. It's terrible.
Yeah,
We need to stop doing it. We can do it, but we're just not very good at it. And we think that we're better at it than men, and we might be slightly better at it than men, but we're still not very good at it.
Yeah. Actually, I don't think men do it as much.
No, they don't. It's just something in our brains that forces us to maximize the time that we're using.
Well, I think it does force us to maximize the time. And I think the other thing is we don't ask for help. So I've had a few conversations with my hubby to say, okay, so this is the thing I think about. I think about lunches and sports and chiropractor and this and that and that. And he just looked at me and he's like, you think about all those things? I'm like, yeah. What do you think about? He's like, cooking dinner. One
thing at a time, like a normal human being.
So I tested this theory out, right? So last year he said, let's go on a holiday. I'm like, great, where shall we go? And we've both traveled quite a bit. And we decided we'd go to Switzerland because our friend works for the Red Cross, and we'd never been there. We decided to go to Berlin because that sounded cool, and neither of us had been there. And we decided to go to London because we'd both been there, but separately, and we'd take our 6-year-old with us. And so that was the decision that we made. And then I said to him, I can't do this. I have too much on. So feel free to make all the decisions about flights, where we're going to stay, blah, blah, blah. He did the whole lot.
Oh, that's so good.
Right? But how much time would that have spent in my brain box trying to think about how I was going to make all that happen? Whereas he was just like, bang, 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 it's done, we're going.
And how wonderful was that experience, just turning up to everything after it had all been organised?
I'm not a control freak at all, so it was perfect.
Absolutely. I want to talk about, you talk about this in your book and you've run a workshop on it. It's your support network. And I think there's a couple of myths that go in through your book as well, where we think we can do it all on our own and, it's just that control that we've got. But having the right people around you can be critical to your success.
Yes.
When you were doing your workshop around this and trying to help people become clear on it, what type of questions were you asking? What do we need to look at within ourselves to identify the right support network?
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing is we say it takes a village to raise a child, right? Which is true, right? But why doesn't it take a village to raise our career, or a village to raise our potential? Or, like we just don't think about strategically thinking about who's in my network. And the work came out of a lady by the name of Janine Garner, and she's got a book called It's Who You Know. And she talks about the 12 types of people that you need around you, and the questions around diversity, et cetera, et cetera. When I ran this first, I did have tears because people just do not think about this stuff. And so I basically opened up with who's in your network, who have you talked to, and it was for women who had their own business, right? So small business women. And down the left-hand side, we named all the people that they had had conversations with over the last 3 months about their business. And then we did the same across the top, right? And then we looked at how diverse that group of people were. Were they all blokes? Were they all women? Did they all know each other? Were they all in Melbourne? What else? And then we went into some of the theory on It's Who You Know. And I ran it again this year because it's kind of like an annual boob check. You've got to keep updating it, because what you did for a goal last year may be really different to this year. And you always need people. And we're not really very good at even thinking about who do we need in our network. And I have to say that there's a really good book by the name of a guy called Adam Grant called Give and Take. So it's not just about what can I take from someone, but it's about what value can I add. And so in Janine's book, she's got these 12 kind of, I suppose, sections, or 12 people that you would ideally want in your group. And they're like people that promote you, people that are your cheerleaders, people that kick your butt and keep you accountable. And so by having all of those people, and they may not know that they're those people for you. Apparently though, I am everyone's butt kicker. So there's that as well.
I think you quietly like that.
Well, I like getting shit done. So, even if that's through others, I'm happy. But so I think just knowing who those people are, and even women in organizations, they don't do this stuff well. They don't actually look at their personal brand and go, what is it that I need this year? And we say yes to everything. And automatically you say yes, you're saying no to something else, but you're not even thinking about it because you're too busy saying yes. So what I really wanted to do is say, where do you invest your time? And it's the same with networking functions, right? I don't know, we've all been to networking functions, and I've got some criteria that I use for networking functions, which is just kind of 3 things. It's, do I need connection? Because that's basically what women need. Do I need some relationships for business development? And will this affect my family? And depending on the answers to those 3, I'll go or I won't go. But I'm very selective about what I go to, because, time is limited. We don't have all that time. And so for It's Who You Know, or who's in your circle, it's really around, how do I create this circle of support, and who am I, whose support am I? Because
it's a big one.
Well, I don't know who named that phrase. You are like the 5 people you hang out with. Who was that?
I don't know, but I've heard that a lot. And I know Liz Volpe from the League of Extraordinary Women says that all the time.
Yeah.
And there's been quite a few guests on this podcast that have used a similar terminology to that. And it's so true. When you really are around inspirational people who are supporting you, it guides you so much clearer to your goals.
Yeah. So I think it's just about who do you need to help you hit the goals that are important to you, and start asking.
Yeah, because you need to have the awareness, and it could be a tricky one. I'm thinking it could be a tricky one, because there's probably people that you love in your life that may or may not be serving the time that you're spending together best.
Well, and that's the flip side. So in Janine's book, she talks about what the shadow side to those are, and who can derail you, or who isn't your biggest, greatest fan. And so it's recognizing those things and working out how you deal with them politically as well.
Yeah.
But I think we leave a little bit of that stuff to chance, and I'm not sure chance is the best way to, figure out who's in your group, or who's in your circle, or who's got your back, or who's supporting you as a well-rounded woman. It's not just about, these are my business goals. This is my life, and how do we do it holistically? Yeah. And that's a bit, sometimes coaching more often than not, people come to me for a business issue, but actually it's about their whole life. It's not just about business. So it might be that there's this one thing that's presenting, but there's a few other things that touch on the other areas of their life. And I'll go there because it's experiences told me that if I don't deal with those things, the other thing's just going to keep presenting.
Exactly. It's like just getting everything in the right alignment in order for it to flow. I think a big thing is when you're starting your own business or you're going down a career route is that you want momentum to kick off. So I want to talk about momentum a little bit and how we get that happening and flowing in our lives, because there can be some blocks that hold us back, and it can present differently in different people, of course, depending on where their goals are and what they're aiming to achieve. But when it comes to momentum, talk us through it. Talk us through the continued momentum. Because for me, for example, I'll get a spurt of momentum and then things will stop. Yeah. And then I'll get another spurt and then things will stop. Yeah. And drives me crazy. Absolutely drives me crazy. And I can probably see standing from the outset where the faults are, looking back in, and you know, where my consistency may have stopped. But let's talk about how to keep consistent with our momentum and build our business to where we want it.
Yeah. So I think you're using momentum. I'd probably use the word motivation, but I don't think that motivation alone is enough. Motivation might get you started. I mean, how many times have you heard people say, oh yeah, I can't wait to do this, or this is my big vision. But when you drill down and ask them a question about it, they're not sure how to get there. So I think having momentum, having motivation in the first instance is great. Having a plan is better. And then the momentum builds. So I think, and I actually wrote a blog about this because I was speaking to one of my clients, and she's an ultra marathon runner. And I said to her, how do you make sure that you keep up with your training and you do X, Y, and Z? And she was like, well, I start backwards. I'm like, okay, so start with the race date. I'm like, awesome. Yeah, that makes sense. And then I look at what training I need to do to take me, 12 weeks back or whatever the race date is. And then I book it all into the diary, so it's there as an appointment with myself. And I make sure, and I use 3 weeks, easy, hard, and medium, or rest, or something like that. And I make sure that it's all in my diary and it doesn't clash with birthdays or races or whatever. And the week before the race is just for recovery, because recovery, in her head, recovery is more important than the training. Big tip for everyone. Recovery is more important than the training. And then motivation gets her going, but the planning keeps her going, and building the habit keeps it going. Yeah. And so I am a great believer of, you've got to have the motivation, but you've got to have the plan. And I hate the word strategy, so I just go to plan and use the 3-point plan, whatever. And then it's about discipline to keep going. And then experience tells you that if you keep going, you're going to hit that goal. And then suddenly you've got consistency and confidence. Because the worst thing is to start, in my head, the worst thing is to start and not finish. And I think that doesn't help with credibility. So for me, how that outworked is I wasn't really a very good writer. Well, I had this belief in my mind that I couldn't write. And I went to Holly from Blue 51 Comms, and we had a content blast. So 3 hours, she just grilled me. I think she was just grilling me to see if I had any substance, because, sometimes coaches get a bad rap. But anyway, so she grilled me for 3 hours. We got this whole content plan, and I committed to her to write once a week and to release a blog once a week. And I did that because I've got discipline as one of my top strengths. So if I commit to something, I'll do it. Even if it's something that is not self-serving, like MyFitnessPal, I committed to log every day for 365 days.
Wow.
And at the 365th day, I was so glad it was done, but I did it, right? Stupid, right?
Well done there.
I could have just quit, but anyway. So I wrote every week for a whole year. I sent a newsletter out for a whole year. And now writing doesn't faze me. I can write a blog in 25 minutes, which is pretty good. 25 minutes, again.
Very good. Everything
I do can be shortened to 25 minutes by coaching sessions, but sometimes we can do that too. So I think the thing for me was, if I'm consistent and show up, then momentum keeps happening, because activity breeds success. And sometimes you got to just get started. And then consistency also breeds credibility, in my head anyway. So one of the things that I'm really well known for is showing up and showing up consistently. And I think in business, when we don't show up consistently, we can look a little bit flaky and like we're not as passionate as what we feel like we are. And so for me, it was really important to show up consistently. And so that's how I did it. That's how ultra marathon runners do it. It's just about having that plan, because your momentum and your motivation wanes over time. You know, you've got this great idea and then life gets in the way and nothing kind of happens. And so, yeah, so that's how she does it.
I like that. Well, I screenshot something today and sent it to a friend straight out of your book. And you had written, the truth is a woman without a plan is, well, lost. You want to get clear on your priorities and quickly. The longer you stay in chaos, the harder it is to get out. And that's all around clarity, isn't it? You need that end goal absolutely crystal clear.
Yeah.
And the how is the fun part, but you know exactly where you're going.
Yes. I mean, I don't know if you've listened to any of my other podcasts, but I really, really wanted to find a husband. And so I had a whole strategy for that. This is another podcast probably, but I was crystal clear on the goal. The goal was nab a hubby. How I got there was going on television and doing speed dating and all kinds of crazy things to get to that one goal.
Well, this is definitely another episode. I'm excited to hear all of this.
But my point is, I was crystal clear on that goal. And at the time, everyone was like, oh, Emma, you're too obsessed about it. I'm like, are you obsessed about your career? Yes. Are you obsessed about your finances? Yes. So I'm obsessed about finding a husband. There's no difference. Anyway, that is a podcast for another day.
So you set out to do it. You probably detailed what you were after in someone.
Yes.
And you found him,
yes.
I'm guessing, very happily.
Very happily, yes.
Manifested the man of your dreams.
Yep. Been together for 10 years.
Well done. Were you on The Bachelorette or something?
No, but I really should have been. No, I was on a TV show that was a competition, and I'm fairly competitive with myself, and I did win, but that's not how I met my husband. But I had a whole plan for meeting someone, and I used a strategy. Everyone tells me I should have been a dating coach.
Oh,
but,
brilliant. It's never too late.
But crystal clear, that's the point, right?
Absolutely.
If you're crystal clear on what the goal is, doesn't necessarily matter how you get there, although you do need a plan.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, there's so many of us who would like to reach our full potential and really make the most of our careers and our life and our lifestyle and our well-being and all of that stuff that comes into alignment. So if you could leave us with some practical advice or just some little tips to go out and get clear on how to reach our full potential, what are the first couple of things that you would do or the advice that you would give people listening today?
Yeah, well, first of all, I would go on a self-discovery mission of what your strengths are. So I use Gallup and they tell you your top 5 strengths. But if you don't want to do that, you could just ask you what naturally gives you joy, because chances are that you're using your strengths. And the research says if you use your strengths, you've got a 10% chance of a 10% uplift. If you focus on your weaknesses, you've got a 1% uplift. So I always kind of lean into my strengths. So it's about finding your strengths and then finding what's giving you joy. So there's those 2 things. And then it's about having a plan, amazingly. So on the 1st of January every year, my poor husband, well, I did make him do a 5-year plan on our honeymoon, but that is another podcast for another day. But on the 1st of January, we sit down and we plan our holidays, because they're the first thing that gets missed in our lives. And so we have a plan for the entire year. What are our holidays? And then the work fits around that. So I think it's important to have a plan. But I would, if you wanted to look at how do I lean into my potential? Have a look at, if it's about career, where you want to be. So I had a conversation with someone last week and I had just met her on LinkedIn and she said, can I have a chat? I said, yeah, no worries. And she was like, I'm not sure where to go next. I'm like, do I go overseas? Do I do this? Do I go on board? So, and she was quite a senior woman. And I said, what do you want to do? She's like, well, I'd really like to be a diplomat. I'm like, okay, why can't you do that? And she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, you've got international experience. You want to live overseas and you've got a background in it. kind of makes sense to mash the two together. Sometimes it just takes another set of eyes, right? Fresh eyes, fresh ears.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I think find your strengths, work out how you lean into your strengths and use your strengths to step into your potential. Don't wait for things. I think people wait for things to land in their lap, or the right moment, or the right opportunity, or Monday. Most people wait for Monday or a new week or a new month to get stuff done. Just start and momentum will come. And I think the opportunities come because we're open to it. So in the first case, if you're not open to it, probably not much will change. But if you're kind of saying, yeah, let's do this. It's like my lunch with the Queen. I'm like, okay, 100 women. So I just had 100 women in my head, 100, 100, 100, and we sold out at 100. Now, you can call that manifesting, you can call that a goal, whatever it is. Did I do stuff to help that? Of course I did. But I still had the goal really clearly articulated. And so you can step into that potential. So I think if you can work out your strengths, lean into your strengths, work out the bits that you're not very good at and outsource them or ditch them or not worry about them. And then work out what you need from your village perspective, from your support perspective. And a lot of women in organizations don't really focus on their own brand. They focus on their identity is caught up in the organization that they work for. And I know that because that was me before I had my 6-year-old. I was so wrapped up in the brand. No one bothered to tell me that when you go off and have a baby, which you have no idea what you're getting into because there's no manual, that you don't know what you're doing and you're not very good at your job anymore because your job's not there, and you're not very good at being a mother. And so what are you actually really good at? No one tells you how to untangle from that. And so I think sometimes just understanding that you can do things to lean into your strengths, and you can do things that will dial up your career. And it may just be small things. It may be about being more visible on LinkedIn. It may be about being more visible on Instagram, if that's your choice of socials. It may be more deliberate in thinking about what networking functions would actually help me versus I'll just go to everything. Yeah. So I think they're just some practical things that I think would probably help, but it's all about your strengths. And there's heaps of free strength stuff online as well that you can do just to kind of suss out what are my strengths and how would I lean into those. And when you're leaning into your strengths, you know it because people will comment on it. They'll go, you look like you're having fun, or you look like, you're doing all that kind of, like if I'm stuck in admin, I'm not having fun.
Yeah. I think you've got so much insight to give to people. If we're wanting to reach out and have a session with you or join some of your mentoring leadership programs, how do we find you?
Oh, thank you. I'm just emmamcqueen.com.au, and I'm on Instagram as Emma R. McQueen, and I'm on LinkedIn as Emma McQueen. So I would love to speak to some of your listeners, and hopefully it's been helpful and we can give some books away. It's going to be awesome.
I'm Maritza Barone. Thank you for listening to the Things You Can't Unhear podcast. I'd love to keep the conversation going. Let us know what you thought of this episode, and if something really profound came up for you that you want to share, let's talk about it. You can find me on Instagram at Things You Can't Unhear, or on my personal page at Maritza_Barone. And if someone you know will benefit from something that was said in this show, make sure you share it with them too. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and keep up to date with what's next. And if you can spare a few seconds, please rate and review the show on iTunes, just so other people can find us more easily and quickly. And as always, my friends, be happy, be healthy, be conscious, and be kind.